Okay, what I wanted to talk to you about now is the guide drawings that you have. Okay, so what I've put together here for you is really, if you would, I mean, they're good drawings, but I'm not going to say they're fully complete. Okay, so we're gonna kind of go through and kind of talk about some things here so that you have some good direction. So as you work independently and you kind of use the resources that we have here, that you know, are mindful of a couple things that I have. First of all, assembly. This is the first guide drawing that I have. Couple things about assemblies. Assemblies, remember, we don't add hidden lines to assemblies. Okay. If you want to put some center lines in, that's okay, but typically we keep those out unless they add, you know, any sort of you know, good details. So I took all of them out because there was way too many center, or I made too many hidden lines to, you know, make sense of anything. So then you're going to notice that you want to balloon all the items. I have 3 views here so that we can see everything. Make sure that you balloon in all 3 views. If you don't balloon in a view, then it's like, why do you have the view? Okay, but I felt that top view gave us some more clarity as far as what that assembly looks like. Make sure you put a pictorial up here. And then I kind of briefly talked about this earlier, but when this comes in, as long as you save all of your files as the part number and not the part name, the part number will populate for you, okay, automatically. The description you will have to put in. When you double click in that area, it's going to ask you if you want to preserve the link. Always say yes to that, okay, no matter what. Here it's going to populate with the kind of their standard weird call out for fasteners. You want to just double click on that, again, preserve the link, but then delete what's there and say standard hardware. And then you want to put a little bit nicer, more like easier to understand description. So it's a 1/4 20 by 0.75 long hex head screw. Okay, something like that. Okay, so you can use what I have here. That's no problem. And then quantities, as we know, are going to automatically populate. Don't forget to fully fill in your title block. The material is non-applicable, but put something there just to recognize that you didn't forget to put it in there. And then your, you know, name and date and such. The drawing number will automatically populate, but you'll have to put in the part name. Okay. All right. So that's the assembly drawing. The next one here that we have is our RAM. Okay, a couple people have been asking about this one. As far as the tooth profile, that is part of one of the handouts that we have in the learning plan. This is called a stub gear. Okay, it's a typical, when you lay it out flat, like on a, I'm going to call it a rack. Like it's really a rack and pinion. What we have going on with our arbor press going up and down, but this RAM, these are the teeth that are there. The details for that are in the handout, but they're also here too. I did make an enlarged view. You do need to do that for your detail. Okay, that is something that's required. There's no way you can fit those dimensions here and make sense of it. You have to make a detail of it. Okay, so if you don't know how to do that, let me know. Okay, but I think also what you know about SolidWorks and playing around a little bit, you probably can make it work. But again, I'm here to help if you need to. The notes that I have here now, there's 2 dimensions on here that are just nominal. Remember, when we did our tolerances and fits practice problems, you needed to identify the fit of the RAM into the recess on that head, that top head of that arbor press frame. Okay, so you want to update those. So again, on this particular drawing, I didn't put those in. Okay, those are yours. Remember, you got to choose the fit and what those limits would be, and now you want to put those limits here for that. Okay, as far as material, I'm only interested in your feature control frame. Okay, or I'm sorry, not your feature control frame, in your title block. You don't have to put the material as part of your model, okay, unless you want to. If you want to, that's totally fine. It's come to my attention that 1018 is not listed in there. I'm surprised because it's a very common type of metal that you can grab. It was like the run-of-the-mill metal steel that we always used for most everything. So so if you did want to put in 1020, I don't really care. But it's just that it has to be a steel. Okay. All right. So so that's the RAM. The next one here, we already kind of touched on this one. This is the pinion shaft. We looked at how to create this. So if you need to, go back to that, you're welcome to do that. Couple things here. Here we need a dimension for the tolerance. Here we need a dimension for the tolerance. And here we need a dimension for the tolerance. These were things on your practice problems that you needed to work out. So make sure that you do that on there as well. I do have a note here. I went over and over again, like, how do I put this in there? Because there's not a clean radius to like grab dimensions from, and it's not super critical. So the note that I put here was just a 2-inch radius cutter exit on each tooth. That's what I put. I thought manufacturing will understand what that means. And because they kind of need to know, like, how far can I go with this? And again, if it goes a little farther, if it's a little shorter, it's totally fine. What's really important is the 1-inch full tooth. Okay, that we get that. Okay. So that's that. The next one here is the faceplate. Okay, couple notes on here. First of all, we are going to be putting GD&T on this. I will be talking specifically about GD&T and how you would apply this with the frame where it attaches to it. And I'm going to be going over that the next time we get together, which is next week, Tuesday. Okay, this is enough information for tonight. We'll add the GD&T a little bit later. But if you did want to go ahead and you're like, I totally remember GD&T. I mean, gosh, it hasn't been that long. This is going to be a fixed fastener application. Okay. And these are the clearance holes, and your threaded holes are going to be on your frame. So the number that goes in here is that fixed fastener application. So I will go over how to calculate that the next time we're together. But if you're like, I got it, no worries, then go ahead and put that in there. Now, additionally, I have a little note up here. You do not put this note on your drawing. It says calculate and add the position tolerances, and don't forget the basic dimensions. I didn't put them on here. So you want to make sure that you add those as well. Okay. I did leave the datums on. So if you want to leave those, and that would be correct. Oh, I also have a flatness tolerance on here. Notice I have zeros there. That doesn't mean that it has to be perfectly flat. It means you're going to have to fill in and decide on a number there too. Okay. So there you go. This one is a cast iron part, and then it's machined, to be nice and smooth. Okay. So that's the faceplate. The next one that we have here is the table plate. The table plate, as you recall from the video, has 4 different sizes of the cutouts. Okay. So just be aware of that. You need to add the tolerance here so that you can get a press fit with the guide pin. And I think that's about it. I did put some finish marks on there. Play around with that. It's a good idea to do that too. Okay. Oh, I do have some dimensioning notes here. All right. So yeah, you want to add that stuff as well. The lever arm, okay? The lever arm, I did make a design change, okay? And this is totally up to you how you want to do it. But I kind of wanted to add threaded ends to our lever arm so that instead of having the knurling and pressing the handle caps on, I would just screw them on. And then that way I can screw them off. And if I want to take that handle out, I can. I don't know if I'm going to want to, but I thought it would just be an easier assembly, and potentially have some benefits later on. So it is a design change. If you want to stick with the knurling, then you would just put the knurling there, and then you would tolerance that inside to be a press fit, okay, of the handle cap. In my case, I threaded the inside so that it would made up with the threads here. Okay, so that is the lever arm. Totally up to you if you want to adapt that design change. The next one here is the collar. The collar, you do need to add a tolerance to the ID. Okay, everything else I think is the same on this one. Okay, and that was part of your practice problems. The next one, here's that handle cap that goes with that lever arm. Again, I changed this to be a threaded hole on the inside at a depth, so that it would, mate with that arm. If you're going to do a press fit, then you would have to call out an FN something fit. Okay, totally up to you. The thumb screw. Okay, the thumb screw, if you look at the part here, you're going to notice that it shows you kind of this profile, but it doesn't give you much dimensions in terms of what that side view looks like. And all that is, it's like an indent so that when you're screwing it, your thumb kind of fits in there a little bit nicely. Okay. So I didn't make mine so fancy. I made mine super simple, and I just did an ellipse, and I made it the same width as, you know, a 1/4-20 thread on one end, and I just made it as one piece. And then I just said break sharp corners, you know, and that's it, so that we don't have sharp corners when somebody wants to use it. If you want to add indents and radiuses there and make it, you know, super ergonomic, that's totally fine. Okay. But you don't have to. You can keep it super simple. All right. So that's what I did there. You're the designer. Isn't that kind of fun? All right. Then the next one here, this is our groove pin. We know that the groove pin, we have to add a tolerance to the OD so that it can fit and press into our table plate. Okay. So that needs to be added there. And then you need to make a small little subassembly for the table plate, okay, where it presses, or where the groove pin presses into that table plate. And then those become one part. And then this is going to be the number 30120 or 330-120 is going to be then the part that you pull in. You do not, on your assembly, you will not have a table plate or a groove pin here. What you have is the table plate subassembly. Okay. And on that subassembly, that's where it calls out those two parts. Okay. But you won't see the individual parts on your overall assembly. Make sense? Okay. So, so here you're going to make a little subassembly. You know, I didn't put the pictorial in the corner. And I didn't put it in there because all the pictorials, because of the way I designed it and had the pin come in from the back side, you couldn't see the pin on any of them. So I'm like, what's the point of the pictorial? So I just made my views bigger. I did keep the hidden lines in here because I thought it was beneficial to see that pin fit on the inside. Again, that's a judgment call on your end. And there wasn't too many hidden lines, so I just kept them. Okay. So that is that subassembly. And then this one is the frame. Now, again, like I said earlier, this is my Creo version because I haven't completed my SolidWorks version yet. I was playing around a lot with that loft for, I don't know, a good week. It was driving me crazy. I'm like, it's got to be easier this. It's got to be easier. And I just, and the only other way that you can create it, there is one other way that you can create it, and it's by doing the extrudes and cutting and extrudes and cutting. And honestly, I think that's a bigger job than doing the lofts. The lofts, it's literally, I mean, yes, it's the sketches and the planes, but it's one function or one feature or one command that you have to do. So, so I really felt that was the better one. And it gets you the opportunity to practice with something that I feel is a little bit more advanced. Okay. So that you can see how that works. So this here does not include the tolerances again, you know, that we had talked about in our practice problems, and it does not include GD&T on here either. Okay, so those will be adders. But I think I wanted to give this to you only because I think in combination with this, sometimes this is kind of hard to look at, okay? Where if you have a couple of views here, that might be helpful as you're generating that model, okay? So are there any questions? That brings us to the end of our drawing guides, okay? If you deviate from the drawing guides, just make sure that you are adhering to the ANSI standards, okay? What I've got here is, like, if you would, good stuff. So it's a good place to start, especially when you start looking at, you know, what size border do I want to use? You know, don't pull in a big border and then have little views. You want to, you know, appropriately use up the space that you have. Okay. The assembly I have on a C size border. This one was on a B size border. Okay. I also, you're going to notice that I have the scale here. Those did change here and there, but notice that I'm not all on one side, or they're not small little views and then there's a lot of space. You want to have an appropriate size border so that you can fit your dimensions on, and that they're readable. Okay. So use this as a start, and if you make them just the way you see them here, it's totally fine too. There's still work to do. You still got to generate them. You still got to do the tolerances. You still, there's stuff here to do. But I also feel like, especially when you're learning the standard, and I feel like you guys still are learning the standard, you need something to like jump off of, okay? Rather than like just start blank. So this is some good stuff to jump off of. All right. Okay. Then if there aren't any questions, and I'm just going to check, I don't have the chat box out. I'm just going to kind of see here. If there's anything in the chat box, feel free to put it in, or virtually if you want to chime in. Are there any questions at all before I kind of let you guys start working? Okay. If they're not, then I'm gonna stop our recording.